The behavior that you see is the visible expression of those invisible issues in the life of a child. And so you can spend all your life trying to control the behavior, or you can get to the heart of it and say, let's figure out what the real issues are here and deal with those so that 10 years from now, they'll be doing okay.
Hello and welcome back to The Uncomfortable Truth. I'm so glad to have you today. Hit those buttons at the bottom. Help us reach more people for Jesus. We have our special guest, Mark Gregston, back on the show.
It's
Mark,
good to be here.
Welcome,
Good
man.
to be here again. Yeah.
I'm glad to have you. You've been through some things since the last time that we met, that we spoke. So last time we talked, you're talking about possibly having some kidneys taken out, getting a new one. There's a lot of things that have gone on. Give us a breakdown of what's going on in your life.
I gave birth to two 20-pound kidneys is what it was. And,
wow.
and they gutted me like a deer and removed those. And then 2 days later, my son donated a kidney to me. And it was one heck of a weight loss program. I mean, I lost 40 pounds in a day.
Wow.
And because they took out my two clunkers, they gave me his Maserati. So it overloaded my system. And so my heart went into AFib stuff and I had to be shocked a number of times. And I mean, it was just one thing after the other.
You say all this jokingly.
I do. I was miserable.
Okay.
I was absolutely miserable.
So how do you say, a lot of people that maybe have gone through that, not just the kidney replacement, but all the issues that you had after it, might be in a different frame of mind. How do you keep from going to that negative space in your head?
That was what I fought when I was in intensive care. They put me in there just to watch me and to kind of just figure out what's going on, and we just need to watch him continually. And I sat in that bed and I'd watch the clock just tick off in 5 seconds. Anybody who's been in intensive care, no, it just ticks off every 5 seconds.
Okay.
And it goes. I'd sit there and watch that. And I'm not the kind of guy to lay down and do nothing. I was so weak I couldn't move. I had my stomach ripped open. I've got 20-some inches of scars where they gutted me. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't pee. I couldn't poop. I couldn't do anything. And all these, gals, these nurses were taking care of me, which was phenomenal. Then they'd leave, and I was miserable. It was like a torture chamber. And a friend of mine here, a guy named Ben Max, said, it's called intensive care delirium, that you just, they come in every hour to take blood or, 3 o'clock in the morning to weigh you, to take more blood, and then they quit. They're a bunch of vampires. I swear that's what they are.
So good rest is totally out of the question.
There is no rest. And so you're not sleeping. I didn't eat for 8 days. My heart was going crazy and I could feel it and I was weak. It was miserable. But to answer your question, it was this. The man across from me died. The girl next to me that was in the next room was brain dead. And they were at 3 o'clock in the morning, the families were meeting to come up with the plan to divvy up her organs. And in all honesty, I was sitting there. The problem I was having is my bowels were shut down completely.
Okay.
I was waiting to poop.
Right. Yes.
Now put that in comparison. And so here I was, the most miserable I've ever been in my life. And yet, in comparison to what other people are going through, I just go, and I said it to the nurses, go take care of them. I'm fine. Everything will work in a bit, but I'm fine. And
There's a lot of deep, I hear a lot of deep thought of you thinking through these things, and you speak very well. Like I think you think about the words that you say and then how they come across. You've done this for 30 years. What is your process as you're laying there? Are you thinking about like how you're processing this and how you're going to explain it to other people? Because these are things that you talk about. Your life experiences dictate who you are, right?
Yeah.
To some degree. What is your process in going through that positive and negative space? And are you thinking of words of how you're going to speak about it later, or are you just thinking through the process and then formulating it's a weird question,
No,
but
I get it.
formulating the story as you go, how does that
I mean,
work?
the story was a little bit difficult to come up with. I mean, it's all a series of things that were happening, but you know what? I think what I kept thinking, because I don't have the words to explain it yet.
Okay.
I just haven't come up with those. So I'm not thinking about how I was trying to explain it to myself.
Mm.
And what I realized was, in the midst of it, is that the suffering that you go through can be the best thing that's ever happened to you. And for me, I kind of likened it, not, I want to be like Jesus, but at the foot of the cross, here's the most significant event happening in the world in all time in history. And there wasn't one bit of laughter because it was tragic at the same time. The tragedy brought about an unbelievable thing. And so I look at it, I mean, like most people, anybody who's had an operation, most of the time you feel better afterwards. And I feel better than I have in years. It's nice to have a kidney that works. But I don't want to miss out on that feeling of comparison. I think kids today end up comparing themselves to everybody who has everything, and that's why they're so stinking entitled all the time, instead of comparing themselves to those people who don't have anything. I read a statistic the other day that said that if you make more than $40,000, you're in the top 0.5% of people in this world. And it's all perspective about how you look at it. And what I've been taught is that, well, if you're going through pain, then there's something wrong with you.
Mm-hmm.
Then you haven't prayed enough, you haven't figured things out enough. And you just kind of go, wait a minute, that's not true. Pain is the very thing that brings about something different. C.S. Lewis said, I don't doubt God's desire to want the best for us. But do we have to go through the pain to get there? And pain, he's also said that pain is God's megaphone to a deaf world. And I think pain wakes you up to those other parts of life that I don't ever have to experience. This is the first time I've really had a major surgery. I don't have to think about those things until your child gets cancer, until you find out a wrong or difficult diagnosis, that you start thinking about other things, that life is a passing breeze, that it's a vapor off of a cup of coffee, that it happens fast. It moves you to think about different things.
I love the comparison between perspective and comparison.
Mm-hmm.
And you're laying in the hospital bed and you have perspective because two people beside you have died. My wife says all the time, comparison is a thief of joy. That's not her quote, that's somebody else's. But those are, comparison and perspective can be two very similar things. How do you separate the two in your life or in your teachings?
I think that comparison can be the source of joy. I mean, when I compare myself to those that have less, to have gone through less, that, who have done, I go, it brings me a great joy and a great sense of thankfulness. I think perspective is a little bit different. It's taking the wisdom that you've learned in life from your own life experiences, those things that you've observed, that you've reflected on, and those things that you have experienced. And you take those and you couple it with the scripture that you know to be true. Now, I was Oklahoma Bible quiz champ in 1969. I mean, I memorized scripture till I was blue in the face. Probably didn't come alive until I had enough life to figure out what those things meant and how they applied. And so I think perspective, that as you get a little bit older, you begin thinking about that. And even as a grandparent, I go, God, quit telling all your opinions. Nobody wants them. A friend of mine just wrote a book, said, Raising Adult Kids. And the byline of the book was, keep your mouth shut and the welcome mat always out. And I go, it's that you get a different perspective. Your ears get bigger when you get older.
And your nose, right? Those are two things that keep growing.
Oh, I know. And I think it's God's joke on men to get them to listen more.
Yes.
Here, I'm going to make your ears look like Dumbo, so that you can get what I'm saying. Listen and then share your perspective. What have you gained from the experiences in your life? And so,
what are you fighting as you get older? I mean, you notice in older people, I'm noticing in myself as I get older that my opinions want to fly out of my mouth quicker than when I was younger, and I could hold them in. And you notice older people, the older they get, they just say. There's not a filter. So is that something that you, as you have gotten older,
well, are you calling me an old man or what?
I'm just looking for experience and guidance here so that I can, maybe do a little bit of what you're doing.
I think the older you get, the more you're quiet.
Okay.
You quit sharing opinions and you share the perspective.
Is that what we should do, or
yes.
do you think it's naturally happens that way?
I think there very much has got to be an intent, that I'll share those things. Kids want wisdom today. They don't want more information. I mean, whatever information's been developed over the last 25 years, we're going to double that over the next 5 years.
Plenty of information out there.
There is, because everybody has a phone. You have access to everything. So they don't want that. And if that's all you do is share information, they're not going to listen to you because they don't need you anymore. And I say that to moms all the time. You've got to quit talking so much, because this is the reason why. When you talk so much and all you're doing is sharing information, what you're doing is pushing your child away. Now, this is more in the teen years. You're pushing your child away, and you're pushing them away, and this is what's happening. And every man knows this to be true, that any woman that we know possesses more wisdom than all the men that we know put together. And when a woman pushes away their child, then that child will not get the wisdom they so desperately need that woman possesses. Mm. And so I think it's being quiet long enough and processing things differently that you look at life differently. You're in a stage as you get older, and I would say that's about 50 and up. You start looking at different parts of life and say, how do I engage differently with people? And I think that's sharing perspective.
Mm. So you've started, founded, run HeartLight Ministries.
Yeah.
And this has been going on. It's an effort to change kids' lives for the positive.
Yeah.
Is essentially what it is. And you spend a lot of time dedicating your time and your life to that purpose.
Sure.
I'm sure you've witnessed some cool things, and I know Sean has some questions that relate to some things that you've seen in your time there.
So one of the first questions that I have for you, Mark, is what's the most powerful transformation that you've ever witnessed in a child's recovery?
Well, it would have to be the relational aspect of it. Mm-hmm. It's interesting because every kid that I know has a story, and we're now up to 3,500 kids that have lived with us through the years. But I'm convinced it's that it happens because of the relationship that parents can either restore, redeem, and move along and continue to grow and have that relationship. We had a bunch of kids graduate this past week. They've spent a year with us, and they graduate. And I'm more concerned about those kids 5 years from now than I am now. And so we take kids who are struggling and having a tough time. So either the parents don't know what to do, or whatever they are doing isn't working. And the comment even Dr. Phil makes, well, is it working for you? Kind of thing. And so there's a million different stories that I probably spend more time writing about and speaking about. But there's always those comments. I mean, there's always those special stories that stick out where you see a transformation. You see a kid that comes to us and is breaking out windows and punching the walls and yelling and screaming at everybody. And by the time they finish, and this one kid that was adopted from Russia, a guy named Max, great guy. I mean, all of a sudden a light turned on and he started going, yeah, I think my adoption has something to do with this. And now he's diving into trying to figure that out. I don't think there's any kid out there that wants to be miserable. I don't think there's any kid that I know that says, when I'm 30, I'd love to hate my parents. I've never met one. They want to resolve those things. So what we found, it's not quoting scripture to them. It's not making sure that we're pounding something down their throat. It is developing a strong relationship with them that lets them know there's nothing you can do to make me love you more. There's nothing you can do to make me love you less. And I think when a kid begins to feel that, then you begin to see the transition of that child experiencing the depth of relationship. We as Christians spend so much time trying to parent like we were parented. And when you have a child that is wired differently, you've got to parent differently. And I think what happens is we get this idea of what it looks like. It's kind of like this, that what are the 5 love languages? Well, everybody can tell you what the 5 love languages. You're not a Christian if you don't know what the 5 love languages are.
Yeah.
But here's my thing. I don't want you to come mow my yard as an act of service. I don't want you to give me gifts because I don't want anything. Matter of fact, anybody listening to this, come by my house and pick out anything you want. Just take it because we're trying to get rid of all the crap that's at our house.
Well, I'm going to take them up on that.
Yeah. I don't really believe in words of affirmation for me, just because when you do public stuff, you get both sides. I don't have any time. And so I can't give quality time, and I don't want you to touch me. And so, those 5 love languages aren't me. I go, yet everybody thinks that's how you love kids.
Like you have to put somebody in a box of like how they're going to receive love and how they're going to receive a relationship.
And you may be missing your kids.
You mentioned something that
sure.
I'm super, super interested in. You said Max was adopted, and he's diving into that and trying to figure out what's going on and how, that has affected his life. I know you probably don't know an exact number, but of the 3,500 kids that have come through HeartLight, what's a guess of a percentage of how many of those kids were adopted?
Oh, I know, 1,450.
Are you kidding me?
It's crazy.
Wow.
Okay,
I always joke that it's, a third of them are homeschool kids, a third of them are adopted, and a third are Southern Baptist. And it always brings a laugh, but there's some truth in some of that as well.
What's going on there? What have you, I know there's nothing you can like absolutely pin down, like it's this, and I know it for sure, but what are some things that you've seen on how adoption translates to kids really struggling?
Yeah, the trauma that any child goes through by being given up by a mother, when they begin to realize that, usually about 12 or 13 years of age, when they're moving from concrete thinking to abstract thinking, they start thinking about those things. And it just happens at the time that they're in middle school when they're being rejected and bullied and they want to belong and they don't. Now they feel rejected. And their grid is that I'm not good enough. I'm never going to be good enough because my mother even gave me up. So there's a sense of abandonment. And I think you couple that with a sense of trauma that a lot of these kids have gone through. We had a young lady graduate this past week that she wasn't adopted by her current family until she was 6 years old.
Okay.
I said, well, Hannah, what did you do? She goes, we went from couch to couch to couch all my life. Well, do you think that would affect a kid?
Mm-hmm.
Well, sure it does. It changes their perspective. It rewires them. And so I think that adoption surely fits, with a lot of the kids that we have, and we just learned how to get through it. The interesting thing about being Baptist, I wouldn't say that now, but I used to because of the strictness that Baptists would have. We want to see this performance. We want to see you act this way and be this way. And sometimes that pushes kids away. And so it's parents that don't have the tools to really function with those kids. And so we say, we're going to put some new tools in your parenting toolbox. And just like the 5 love languages that I mentioned, Scripture tells us, don't lean on your own understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the box that is there. Don't lean on your own understanding. Look differently at this. And so when you have a child that's wired a little bit different or experience things different in life, you got to look at them differently. And sometimes it's just putting some new tools there. The other part, let's say the homeschool or the Christian school, is, the issue becomes there is more socialization. Because homeschool used to be just an isolation. It was never involved in public school, couldn't do things. And we don't see that as much, except in maybe the Mennonite, the Amish community, where it's isolated and this is how life's going to be lived. And these kids are going, I don't want to do that.
Mm.
And so there's a reason behind all of it. The behavior that you see is the visible expression of those invisible issues in the life of a child. And so you can spend all your life trying to control the behavior, or you can get to the heart of it and say, let's figure out what the real issues are here and deal with those so that 10 years from now, they'll be doing okay.
I think it's really good. You mentioned something earlier that when a kid graduates or leaves HeartLight, you're not as worried about them, and you're really concerned about what 5 years down the road looks like.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, I mean, we had an adoption weekend, and I wrote everybody afterwards and said, we invited people to HeartLight, 50, 60 people, and said, come and we'll help you with just issues around adoption and help you get some things. And I wrote everybody afterwards, and I said, hey, give me some high points. What do you think? Was it effective? And a man wrote me back and he goes, I'll let you know how effective it is after I try to put some of these into play with my child. And I go, that's the perfect answer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it sounds good, but it doesn't mean that it is good until you take the effort to apply those things to a child's life and involve yourself. And it's this, if you have a discipline problem, you have a relationship problem.
Mm.
And you're going to have to spend some time working on that relationship.
5, 10, 15 years later, you haven't seen a kid, and they come back to you and they say, Mark,
happens all the time.
I've been doing this. Share a story with the listeners and viewers here of like some of the cool things that you've got to witness.
Well, as I said, there's a million of them. There's a little girl.
It's hard to narrow them down, isn't it?
It really is, up in Morton, Illinois, that she was a mess, sneaking out of the house at night, lived on this huge farm, and carrying a ladder, sneaking out, going out, getting high, getting drunk. I mean, everything, cute as anything, but just an absolute mess. I mean, looking at her dad going, or saying this or that, or telling him he needs a rectal cranial inversion or something. I mean, it's just, just anything nasty you can think of. This little girl comes to us and gets through all of this. And and the parents are working through at the same time. And you see both of them working on things to establish that relationship. Now, she's always been wired differently. She's this attention deficit gal that just go, 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 go. And she's a fun gal. And so she calls me and goes, will you perform my wedding? Absolutely. I mean, so I think her wedding was number 440 something.
Okay.
Wow.
And so now she's got 2 kids. I mean, she's got 1 kid. She's got 1 due in 3 weeks. And so we see her moving on with principles and the other part with resolution. It's one thing to build principles into your child. It's the other thing to resolve the issues in their life that have hurt them or damaged them and get them to a better place so that it's not controlling them.
That's good. I think about those stories, and I think about the impact that HeartLight has had and measuring success.
Mm.
I worked there. I understand the concept of like measuring success is in the eye of the beholder, and can you get past these issues? The kid may graduate and revert back, or the kid may graduate and in their eyes, or biblically wise, may have success in their life. Kids on board trying to make changes,
Mm-hmm.
parents aren't. They say they are, but they don't want to make changes, or vice versa. How do you see that actually being successful? And I know, again, the term successful is different for everybody.
Yeah.
But how do you see if both parties aren't on board with that, how does that typically end up?
We have that all the time. I mean, it's the kids making great changes in their life. They're going to blossom and get, and the parents won't make any changes. Then we have to prepare that child to go into a situation it's not going to be any different. Same thing.
Is that those intentional conversations that you and the counselors are having?
And we have with the family. You guys are still, I mean, here's an 18-year-old girl that is ready to blossom, ready to go off to college. Well, we want her to stay home and be with us for the next year. And the girl's going, I don't want to be at home. I don't want to be at home at all. because nothing's changed. And I think those are the challenges that we face with so many parents. Now, after a while, you just get to the point where the only parents we take are ones that are going to work with us and see the need for something different. But we take a lot that don't see the need. And then we also have kids that don't graduate. 49 of the kids that I know that never graduated from the program have committed suicide. And
How many?
it's 49. It's a big
Ouch.
number.
Mm.
We've only had one kid that's graduated that has taken her life because she just fought depression forever. And so 5 or 6 years later, we lost her. And so that's the backdrop that I work in, is that I know that half the kids that come to HeartLight would tell you this. If they were sitting in here, and they would tell you, I wouldn't be alive had I not come there. And so that's why we're so intentional and serious about the work that we do with these families, because we're saving these kids' lives.
I'd love to get one of those kids on the show.
Absolutely. That's incredible
With
just
you.
to hear.
Yeah.
How many people do y'all have to turn away because they don't fit the mold, like the parents are unwilling or whatnot to work with y'all's program and make the changes that they needed to make?
Yeah. 99% of the calls
Wow.
that come in, we get about 10,000 calls a year. But it's 99% of. Now, a big part of that is financial. You know, it costs a lot of money to be at HeartLight, and the reason is because that's what it cost us, and we don't even break even. I think we lose money, but we charge $10 an hour. What a babysitter would get times 24 hours, times 7 days a week,
Times
4 weeks,
9 months, right?
Yeah,
9 to 12
9
months.
to 12 months. And you do the math and it gets up there. So that eliminates a lot of people. And that's why I spend so much time traveling, speaking, doing seminars, conferences, to help those people and even write books to help those people that can't come to HeartLight. And at the same time, I spend my time helping people not ever have to send their child to HeartLight.
So I would assume that you have to deal with people from all walks of life. You said something about a child from Russia a minute ago. And so I'm sure you run into the issue of political correctness sometimes. And I'm just kind of curious what your stance is on political correctness.
Well, I'm not. That would be it. You know, I've learned this, that
truth, right?
that I say what needs to be said.
Yeah.
And
I think there's power in the truth.
Yeah, there is. And it's just saying what needs to be said. And so the whole woke deal, that's woke is joke, and I mean, all this, it's just saying, now think some of this stuff through. It's so stupid that we would be moving in that direction, because I'm telling kids, I think your thinking is off. I think, and so for a parent to allow things. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't love gay kids. I do. It doesn't mean that I can't love a Buddhist that lives with us now, or a Muslim that lives with us now. I mean, I can love them just as much. It was interesting that our little Buddhist accepted Christ.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
Yeah, well, you can have the conversation, with her family. But I mean, but I go, to me, it's interesting. I can still love them. But I think speaking the truth, even to dads, going, you are out of place. What you're saying is wrong. The comments that you make to your daughter are immoral. The way that you handle her, you're too strict. You have an anger problem. You've done some things that is causing your child to spin out of control. I think the honesty of when you get the truth on the table and you speak to what's there, through the context of having a relationship with people, that I think that's where change begins to happen. Because so many times people are afraid of men to talk to them and be honest with them. I told a man once, he said, will you work with me? Yeah, I will. But you have to give me permission to call you what you are in terms that you don't use very often when you're acting like that. And he goes, you could do that. I said, I will. And so I get to call him that every time. I said, you're acting like it, But I mean, and they need that, because most people go through life without that, because you and I shun that. We don't want correction. We don't want somebody to tell us how to do it better or how we can do it different. And I think that's desperately needed, to be honest with people and honest with our wives, saying, this is what I feel. Our wives being honest with us, and where I always tell my wife that she's wrong, but
she doesn't listen to you.
She doesn't listen to me. She goes, she told me the other day, the reason your ears are all stopped up is because God's trying to teach you a lesson. You don't listen to me. Now, I say that, and I say that at the same time. When God's speaking to me?
When
my wife's mouth is open.
There you go.
Is what I've learned. And so those relationships are fantastic of growth, and God uses me with her and her with me. Bob Goff made a comment that every person you come in contact with, God has a message for you through them. And I believe that to be true. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at it that way, you look at engagement of difficulty and struggles and hardships, completely different. You go, we can get to a good place. And there's a lesson for me to learn here.
One thing that I've noticed about you or known about you since the time that we've worked together is that you question everything.
Yeah.
Good or bad. If it's going good, you question, how can we make it better? If it's bad, you question, why is this bad and how can we make it better? Sometimes I would think that you might drive some people crazy that work around you. I know you drove me crazy.
I drive everybody crazy. I do.
But with the intention of making things better, right? Is that something that, like, you literally question everything and it's a thought process? Is that something that just came naturally to you, that God just made you that way? Or is that something that you developed over the years? And then as you're questioning things, how do you work through them to try and strive to make things better?
Well, I think, the work that I do, there's a financial and business side to it that I'm always looking at. How do we get the biggest bang for our buck? How do we make sure that we're affecting as many people as we can with the money that God's given us through donations or tuition of kids or whatever? How do we do that? How do we make sure that we're shifting with a culture that is changing to continue to offer what we need to offer? What's some of the messaging that needs to be different? What do we need to eliminate? A few years ago, there was a huge uproar in the gay community. And please hear me. I have a lot of gay kids that I love them to death. I can love you whether you're gay or not. But there was so much going on that when we reprinted a book where I wrote 2 chapters about the influence of 2 gay kids, what they had on me and what I'd learned from them, we eliminated those chapters just because we didn't want all the difficulty of having to deal with all the issues from the outside.
Do you think that would have been helpful for people to leave those 2 chapters in?
Well, I think it would have kept us from, having to be bombarded because people think sometimes that we're a gay conversion camp. I don't even know what that is, quite honestly. And so there's a part of it that I go, you make decisions to make sure that you can further your mission in a better way. And our mission is to offer help and hope to parents and teens in a broken culture. And so however we can do that better, then I'm going to speak to that and drive people crazy.
Do you find, I want to be fair, I probably drove him crazy too.
No.
I have my moments. Do you find that you constantly find yourself going back to that mission statement?
Always. There'll probably in a day I don't think about it. How do we help more? How do we do a broadcast, a podcast, a video cast? How do we write a different book? What are the types of retreats we need to be having to meet the needs of parents? What are the topics that we need to be talking about on radio? What do people want to hear? It's not what I want to say. It's what people want to hear.
But how much do you filter what they, in quotations, want to hear versus what you may know to be true about what they need to hear?
I mix it in together.
Okay.
I know you want to hear this, but let me tell you something that I've learned also that might be helpful for you.
It's like putting the broccoli on the back of the spoon for the kid.
That's right.
With the nacho something that tastes good on the front.
Men don't like to be told they're wrong. Am I right?
So
Of course,
true.
You're wrong.
Of course I'm
You're
right.
wrong.
No, I'm not.
You're
You
right.
know, and so, yeah, and you go, so they don't like that. So you have to be very careful. And all the seminars and stuff that I do are geared toward men. So we're going to laugh every 5 or 6 minutes.
That's good.
It's
You're going to get their attention.
I'm going to say words that you're not going to hear from the pulpit on a Sunday morning. I speak at an event at the end of the month in Southern Illinois, and it's a men's conference. We're going to have a blast.
Mhm.
And those guys are going to be laughing like crazy.
Did you know that when people laugh, it like registers something in your memory where you hang on to that
Yeah.
more than
Yeah.
you probably know that. It's probably why you do it.
Yeah.
But you remember things when your body is filled with joy.
Joyful.
Yeah. 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 Most of the seminars that I do, you can, I mean, when the women are dragging their husbands, you can see the black marks from their boots and shoes on the outside of
Fingernails clawed down the wall.
Yeah, I know. I mean, they go, no, what's this going to be? And I know they're
I
coming
don't want
in
to be
like
here.
that. Yeah, I'd rather be playing golf. I'd rather be
Fishing.
doing something. And I go, okay, we've got to make it something that is edible, that's memorable, that they will go, I need to do something different.
So your goal is to make these absolutely hard truths palatable.
Absolutely.
That's cool.
Absolutely.
One of the questions that I have is I'm really trying to wrap my head around, my wife and I, we have 3 daughters, and our youngest daughter has been a lot more problematic than the 2 oldest ones.
Yeah.
And I feel like we kind of were par for the course on the 2 older ones from a parenting standpoint. My question is, do you have the youngest sibling coming through your program maybe more often than the first or the second born or the
Yeah.
and and if so, what do you think the real reason behind that is from a parenting standpoint?
Yeah, one, I mean, every kid is different, and if you think that you can parent the first 2 and do the same with the third one, it's not necessarily true. And at the same time, whatever you do within your family, it may be the first one. And usually parents are a lot more strict with the first one, and then they loosen up. But sometimes that child that's the third one needs just as much as the first one got. It's like this, you have a baby, and you don't let anybody in the room to touch the baby and make them wear gloves, put on a mask. You do all that stuff. Then you have another baby. Now you're dragging that baby through the mud. It doesn't matter. You got 1 million pictures of the first one, 2 pictures of the next one, and none of the third one. I mean, you just kind of lose interest, and the dog takes the place. I ask dads all the time, to go, what does your child want? Do you know what she wants? Do you know what she desires in life? Do you know what her longings are because her behavior, whatever the behavior is, it's a reflection of something else. It's goal-oriented. She wants to get to a place. So that'd be the challenge. Do you know what they want? Because if you don't know what they want, then they're going to try to get it any way they can.
Sure.
And I think that you have to speak to the question, am I missing something? Am I loving her the wrong way? Maybe she doesn't get loved this way. Maybe she wants to feel love in a different way. What's the most important thing to her? And that, here I am giving you answers. I ought to be giving you questions, but I would be texting her saying, hey, what is it about me that keeps our relationship from happening? If you can change one thing about our family, what would that be? What have I done wrong? But it's almost saying before you look at the speck in somebody else's eye, you got to look at yourself and say, what is it about me? Lord, search me, know my heart, and see if there's any hurtful way in me, and let me know what that is so I can change it and deepen the relationship. And I think it's communicating to her over and over again. Hey, I want you to know that even at our worst spot, our family is better off with you in it. And it's words of affirmation that is making sure she understands she's loved. We want to have a relationship. And that becomes the most important thing. Do you feel like you have a good relationship with her?
I feel like I do. I go and I enter a room every night and we pray together, and and Mom comes in there often and prays, and we go to all of her sporting events. We do our best to be present, but we're also extremely busy.
Mm.
Mom and Dad are extremely busy, and what I mean by that is we multiple companies in different industries and lots of employees, and we just stay really, really busy. And because of that, I do believe there's some neglect there. I'm not going to sit here and say, we are a long ways from perfect whenever it comes to parenting. But, I can remember specifically about a year ago, she snuck out of the house.
Mhm.
And I just happened to wake up in the middle of the night and check my Live 360 for whatever reason, and I saw where she was in Spring Hill, about 10 minutes away from our house.
Yeah.
And I knew where she was. I immediately got in the car and took off.
Yeah.
And I picked her and I picked her up. And as they saw me coming, they were trying to leave before I got there, but didn't quite. That didn't happen. She got in the car, and I'm just livid. I'm so mad. And I'll never forget whenever I pulled back up in the driveway in her house. I looked back. I was so angry, and I just started sobbing. I could not stop crying. I was like, what am I doing wrong? I'm like, what am I doing wrong in our relationship? I don't understand why you would do something like this. I was like, we give you this great life. We've given you all these things, and I'm just sobbing. And she was like, Dad, just stop crying. Like, please stop crying. And it really upset her. And she walked the straight and narrow for a very, very long time. And after that, but I can just remember thinking, I'm failing my child. Like what? Like and don't get me wrong. Hey, I can remember sneaking out whenever I was her age, and
Sure.
and I don't want to sit over here and I'm sure maybe my other girls, maybe they did, at one point do something like that, but we never caught them. But I felt like she was kind of floundering at that point in her
Sure.
life, and I want to try to put her back on the right tracks and do the best I can. And anyway, but yeah, there's a lot of struggles we've had with her as a third sibling that we just never had with the other two.
Yeah.
And I feel like Mom and I are doing something wrong. My wife and I, we've prayed about it, and we try to pick up the pieces and just to put up these guardrails that are not too tight, that she feels like we are suppressing or sheltering her in a way that is going to hinder her as an adult or as a teenager. And so, it's just something I often wonder. I'm like, what am I doing wrong here? Do we need to go to counseling? What do we need to do here?
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, I appreciate your vulnerability of saying, what am I doing wrong? But I also heard this in what you were saying. What am I doing? What's my wife doing? What am I? And at this point, it's not about you. It's about her. What does she need? What is missing in her life? How do we meet that need differently? How do we engage with her differently? I am not saying that any of this is wrong. Maybe she gets put out when you pray with her at night. I mean, maybe she gets put out when certain things happen. You've got to review all of that and go, maybe that's pushing her away. Maybe you are too strict. Maybe she feels that she's not loved because you spend more time at work. That's what happened to me with my kids. Here I am, a parenting guy, and I ignored my kids when they were in high school because I was so stinking busy doing everything else for every other kid. And so they found other ways to engage. That's probably why my son drank. He finally quit 3 years ago, but drank like a fish. He's really an alcoholic. That my daughter wrestled with an eating disorder when she went off to school. Yeah, I can link those things back to me and go, I missed it. I just absolutely missed it.
I just want to commend you for a second. If you want to come over here, I'll actually pat you on the back physically.
You want to give me a hug?
Yeah, I will. I'll give you a hug. But just, I think like opening up and both of you guys being vulnerable about what you've been through. I think a lot of people in your position as a leader of this Christian organization would probably try to hide those two things that you just mentioned about your own kids.
Yeah, maybe.
What has enlightened you enough to really just like be real about these? Your kids love you. I know that they do. I know that you guys have worked through those things.
Yeah, a lot.
And what has motivated you to be this open with your story as the guy who's helping other teens and parents?
When I was 20, there was a book, in my 20s, there was a book that was written, I'm okay, you're okay. When I turned 30, I wanted to write a book called I'm okay, you're not. And then I wanted to write at 40, I wanted to write a book called I'm not okay, and neither are you. 50, it was I'm not okay, and I don't care anymore. And then when I turned 60, it's
I pooped on myself.
Yeah, I pooped on myself. But I want to write a book called Tasering Kids God's Way. It's just different. But I think what happens is you move to a point and you go, and it's just that you don't care anymore. There really is. Now, I'm on Christian radio. There's things I can't say on Christian radio, but I can unleash on
some
a podcast.
Of these things. Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
and uncomfortable truth.
Yeah, but we'd be crucified if I said some things, but we want to hit that audience as old as they are. And but podcasts, you can say that, but I think you learn after a while. It's far better to say the things that need to be said than to not say them. And I think you just pick it up the later in life you get. I wish that I had somebody older counseling me and talking to me about stuff. I've never had that in my life. There's one guy that I follow, a guy named Chuck Swindoll, who's a Bible teacher, and he's just been a wonderful guy who speaks into my life. And there's another man that started Silver Dollar City and Hershon Family Entertainment, Whitewaters, and all that stuff. He's 90 years old, and he speaks into my life, but they don't live close. They're somewhere else. But how I wish I had that so that I wouldn't have to learn it on my own, and I could listen to the wisdom of somebody else and go, you got it. I wish somebody would have confronted me when my kids were in high school. You're working too much.
I think about those things too for my life. And, I'm a business guy. I wish somebody would have taken me under their wing and showed me how to do real estate when I was 20 that had already done it. But also the next thought that I have is, would I have been open to that?
Yeah.
And I don't know if I know the answer to that. Regardless, for me specifically, regardless if there was somebody or not, that's not the issue. How can I create that now? Have you looked back and thought that question to yourself of, would I have been open to somebody coming to you when you were 40, 45 and saying, hey man, you're screwing the pooch here. Like this is a bad deal. Let me tell you what you're doing wrong. How would that have looked for you?
I had a guy when I was in my early 20s that spent 4 years with me, and he would do that. And but then after that, it kind of quit.
Okay.
And so yeah, I would welcome it. At the same time, I think it's sometimes hard for men to sit down and be vulnerable enough to share about a kid but I think even what kids want anymore in life is genuineness and authenticity. And when you're genuine and authentic, my dad never was. He was a horse's ass, the whole time, but as our Lord would say. And
a donkey.
But he would just be there was never that. And so our generation was a Starbucks generation. We said, let's create relationships. And so those relationships started. And now guys hug each other. Now they pat each other. They used to never do that. And they tell their kids they love them. I was never told I was loved. And so I think we have the opportunity to deepen the relationship. But I think that genuineness and authenticity has got to happen even at a further level if you want a child to come to you rather than you always spending time with them. I mean, they're influenced by a lot of different things. They see things, they compare that they don't have, and they want more freedom. They want more stuff. They're never grateful for, that's a generalization, for what they get, those kind of things. But they need to have more freedom as well. I mean, it's like the 360 thing. I know a guy that's a senior in college that his mother calls him whenever he's not in his dorm room because he's got this Life 360 thing that is keeping track of him everywhere. That's a little out of bounds.
What was your advice to him, is to turn it off?
I would turn the thing off and, tell your mom to shut her mouth. Yeah, I mean, I go, we are keeping kids from growing up, and they desperately want to grow up. They don't know how to, because the images that they have are not good. 50% of people are divorced. And I mean, so you don't see these families that are all together, but they want that relationship because they're not getting it anywhere else. I mean, all the time that your child spends on the phone, they're really trying to fulfill the very thing that God's created them for. And that's a connection with people. And they're not getting it in this culture. And so that's where my push is always. The parents need to be the ones that really, I want to say, expend the time and the effort and the resources to engage with their child, because they need you in the teen years more than any other time. So quit doing everything else. Quit volunteering. Quit serving on a school board. Quit serving, teaching everybody else's kid and doing all that. Quit playing golf. Quit, whatever it is that's taking up your time, and spend time with your kids, because in a few years they're going to be gone. And so, and your influence is over.
Yep. That's exactly right.
Back to your personal experience with, I think, the goal with parenting today's teens in HeartLight is to catch it before, right? Catch
Hopefully,
it before.
Yeah.
That's the goal, right? Catch it before it gets out of hand. With your personal experience of feeling like you missed the boat on some levels with your own kids, I think there's a lot of dads out there that probably feel that way.
Yeah.
And they can learn from what you did. Once you realize that, what action steps did you start taking to repair those relationships with your two kids?
That's a great question. You go to them, and you go to them, and it's this kind of conversation, because I've had it twice. I mean, my son even told me 5 years ago, Dad, the only time you talk to me is when you talk about business. When you talk, I go, you know what? You're absolutely right. And we need to change some things up. I drove to Baylor where my daughter was going to school. And I said, I want you to know something. I've missed it. I have totally missed it with you. Hell, I didn't even know where you work. I mean, while she was off at college. And I just said, I've missed it. I apologize. I am so sorry. I've been so consumed. I have put other things above you, and I shouldn't have. And I think you leave it at that, without giving excuses, without telling reasons why. You just let it be known. And I think that's vulnerability. I think the genuineness is more about, I want to have a deeper relationship. And so what I found, I needed to quit speaking everywhere and go spend a weekend with my daughter. With my son, it's going, let's go do things, because he wants to talk about business. I'm so consumed in what I do that, and we work together. And so and I miss it sometimes. I miss it big. And so that's where I've got to go. Let's go do something together. Let's sit down and talk. Hey, I'm in Dallas every other week getting blood drawn from the vampires. And so let's go eat dinner while we drive back. Let's go eat lunch and not talk about work, not talk about those things, the challenges that we need to face. But it's very intentional. I would tell you to go and spend one day a week that you take her out to lunch or dinner or breakfast and sit down and just ask questions. That's it. I mean, so she knows that you're there. And we get this idea that we have to do these things to connect with kids, either praying with them or going to all their events and all that other stuff. And I go, your child wants you to be connected with them, and to show that you'll invest your time, your effort, your money. that they're valuable enough that you want to do that. Most weddings I've done, we talked about a wedding earlier. Most weddings I've done, when men get up and talk about their daughter or their son getting married, they are regretful that I haven't done these things. It's not a matter of, yeah, we've done all these things. It's been fantastic and wonderful. It's, man, I'm sorry that I wasn't there for you when I needed to be, kind of thing. And that's an important lesson for everybody to learn, I think.
I feel so blessed, and we're talking about perspective, that Courtney and I, my wife and I, worked at HeartLight.
Mm-hmm.
She worked for HeartLight, and I worked for the foundation, which was with you. And just even though I wasn't in the day-to-day of the working with the kids, it's such a perspective shift.
Yeah.
Before we had kids to now, we just had an issue last night with our oldest that we had to correct her on some things, and it was tough. But the values and the lessons that we've learned through that process and the perspective that we have from seeing like what true struggle looks like to dealing with the issue we were dealing with last night allowed us to walk through those things in a different way than I think we would have walked through them. So I really do think about that quite a bit and count ourselves blessed as like the opportunity and the years that we got to spend there.
Mark, earlier we were talking off camera, and it opened my eyes to something that we have in common that kind of set us down on a path of entrepreneurship and a path that we likely never would have gone down if it hadn't have been for somebody in our lives letting us go from another career or another company. I was fired from a job at the age of 25, and in that termination of that job, I was like, I'm never going back into corporate America, even though I am involved somewhat in corporate America today. I was like, I'm never going down that path. I ended up starting my own business that we still own today, and that opened up doors for other companies and businesses, and it was just such a blessing. But nobody ever thinks to say thank you to the person who identified my fault in that career and let me go, that sent me down this trajectory of really what I feel like is God's will for my life. And I know that you have gone down this, just this remarkable path. You've written several books. You've built an incredible ministry with HeartLight that has made a profound impact in the lives of thousands of families all over the world. You've had your own radio broadcast, TV shows, podcast, etc. And as men, we want to make a difference in this world. And one of the questions I have for you is, what kind of legacy do you want to leave in this world?
I don't care. I mean, there really is a part of me, I don't care. I mean, I've spent my life helping people. It's what I want to do. The legacy is not, a legacy is not what I think I want to be. It's what other people think I am. And so my role is not to go, this is how I want to be seen. To me, for me, that seems selfish. I mean, what's going to be on my epitaph, on my tombstone? I don't know. I mean, somebody will put it there. Maybe it was, he was fun. Maybe it was, he worked too much. Maybe it was, I told you I was sick, whatever it is. I mean, I don't know what it's going to be, but I really don't think about that and really never have. I think I've been one that's just going, I'm not doing anything different than I was doing when I was 19. And that was pouring into kids and families and just helping them any way I can. That's it.
Those are Christ-like attributes. You're serving and loving and helping people. And I really feel strongly that that's a huge calling that Christ has. It's discipleship, right?
Yeah, but I mean, golly, I saw the Beatles when I was 9.
Are you that old?
Go ahead. Keep it up. Keep it up. Keep it up. Accepted Christ at a Beach Boys concert. And
Wait, you did really?
Yeah. that crazy?
That is crazy.
Yeah.
We got to hear
Dave Wilkerson came down.
I love the Beach Boys.
It was in Tulsa, and Tulsa wanted to do a youth decency rally in response to Woodstock, which evidently was indecent, but I wasn't there. I don't know. But so they did this decency rally. They hired the Beach Boys to come in, and at the intermission, Dave Wilkerson, who's an evangelist who wrote The Cross and the Switchblade and all that, got up and preached. Had a call, and I walked down, and he grabbed my hands and prayed with me, accept Christ.
That's cool.
And then I finally figured out what he was talking about when I was 27. I mean, it took a while for it to sink in.
Yeah.
But I think I think those early years of having Scripture kind of pounded in me, not pounded by family and stuff, but I mean, just given to me, and we memorize, that out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And so it's taking that time to do that. So I don't look at it as, I'm not going, man, I want to be Christ-like. I look at it, I want to be doing what God wants me to do. And if other people see it as that, that's fantastic.
Sure.
But it's not, that's where I get out of this little box sometimes. I've grown up in the church. I've done young life work. I even speak at Bill Gaither events of the Gaither vocal band, which is as old as dirt, so I've done all that, but it's not, I'm just being who I am. I don't go, man, I need to do this because I'll be more Christ-like, because I really believe that the relationship that I have is more about who I am and not what I do. And that's why I confuse people a lot.
It's a great answer, though. Very, yeah.
And I tell grandparents all the time, the legacy that you leave is not what you leave in their bank account, but it's what you deposit in their hearts. And so,
amen.
To me, that's all I'm supposed to do, and I don't worry about anything else.
Mark, we're going to wrap it up right here with, I'm going to ask you to do one last thing. So this camera that's to the right of Sean here, parents out there that are struggling, I want you to speak directly to them that are struggling with their teenager or preteen, and encourage them. Also, give them some hard truths of what they can be doing to connect back with their kid. It's the speech that you would give a parent who's like, I don't know what's going on. Can you help me?
Yeah.
Can you tell them?
Yeah, I you need to buy all my books. No, I'm not going to say that. This is that, your kid's struggling for a reason. There's something they want they're not getting. There's something that they long for that they feel that they can't get out of their life, and so they want something different. So it may mean that you've got to shift and try to figure out what's going on in their life. And if they are one that is, self-medicating, and that you got to take care of that issue, but you got to deal with those issues. It's this, your relationship becomes key. You got to work on the relationship, and that relationship begins with you. And the second thing is you got to build structure within your home. That's so important. Kids want structure. And the third part of that is dealing with the issues that are in your child's life that may be hurt somewhere. There may be things that have gone on in your child's life that you don't know about. My wife was sexually abused for 7 years, and nobody knew it at all. Nobody knew it. So I think it's trying to figure out, how do I help them, either in counseling by spending more time with them, developing a deeper relationship. But for that relationship to happen, then you've got to be spending a lot of time saying, how can I make it better? There's only one person in this world you can change, and that's you. And then the other part is developing that structure that creates that atmosphere of relationships to happen. And of course, as we've mentioned, your genuineness and authenticity will make all the difference in a relationship, whether you want to keep it shallow or go deeper. God bless you. I hope you guys can work it out in some way, and please don't hesitate to get a hold of us if we can be of any help.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us today, Mark. Thank you guys out there for joining us by watching or listening. Don't forget to hit those buttons at the bottom. Help us reach more people for Jesus. Go kick the day in the face, and we'll catch you on the next one.